Hello, hello, everyone. Hopefully we are recording right now. I think we are. Yep. This is a special edition. It's May 20th. Special edition of the release engineering subproject meeting, kind of informal thing where we're going to go over how to update Go for Kubernetes. So specifically within this meeting, we're going to talk about the Go patch updates instead of the Go minor updates. The Go minor updates are potentially a little bit more involved and not entirely documented. We're still discovering some of this process ourselves for the team, so I don't want to run into hiccups by doing that. So hey, currently we have Veronica and Marky on the call. Veronica and Marky are going to be responsible for doing the Go 110, Go 113.11 updates. And that will be an update for the master branch, so Kubernetes 119, as well as cherry picks back to the 118, 117, and 116 branches. Right now, we're currently on Go 113.9 in all of those branches. So as long as we're maintaining minor version compatibility, we should be fine. So yeah, this is the issue. This is kind of broad strokes of what the update process looks like. I am going to find an issue that is for Go 113.9, so the updates that I did a while back. And we can walk through some of that. So let's do these side by side. Make sure that that kind of matches up, right? So cube cross bump, image promotion, KK bump, the cherry picks, yes. Kubicons variant, Kate's cloud builder bump, and publishing bot bump. Okay, that makes sense. All right. So step by step, some things have changed in kubectl. Just to start off, kubectl is the image that we use within Kubernetes that allows cross-compilation builds, right? So cross our multi-architecture builds, right? So that image needs to maintain the same Go version that we're intending to bump Kubernetes to, right? So really quick, we'll take a look at what that image looks like, right? So that's in Kubernetes release, build, cross, and then Docker file, right? And I'll talk about some of the content of this repo so you can get a better idea of what's there and why. So we've got a Docker file, and this Docker file has been fairly similar for some time. We did some kind of optimizations of a few of these run steps, but going down the line, we're grabbing the Go version. We're grabbing whatever Go version is specified by the build argument. We're also doing a bunch of Debian things in non-interactive mode. So basically, when we do apt get commands, we don't really have to specify this yes because it's running in non-interactive. And you can see that we've got some cross platforms listed as arrays here. So we're essentially iterating over those arrays, installing standard libraries for Go, and then cleaning the cache afterwards. Then we're doing an update, doing some minimal installs of a few packages, adding in the key for what is this for cross compiling, yada yada yada, adding some build essential goodness and the cross build essential for each of the platforms, adding protobuf. So the protobuf version should match or be in compatibility range of the protobuf versions and libraries that are in Kubernetes. we're creating a temp directory, adding some Go utilities like cover and Go imports, again, cleaning the cache, adding etcd, and then doing some cleanup on the app side later at the end, and setting a null entry point. So that's the Docker file really quick. Any questions on that? Okay, that wasn't the exciting part. Let's look at the more interesting things, right? So for people who have been on the release engineering calls before, I've gone into, in the past, I've gone into how we do image building, from CI, how we kind of support staging to production promotion process. And one of the tools that we use is something called GCB Builder, right? So essentially, this is a command line utility that wraps calls to GCP, Google Cloud Build. So that call is really, I think it's G Cloud Build Submit, right? And it submits that command with a set of the set of substitutions, right? So substitutions are essentially GCP's name for variables, right? So we're passing in some user-specified variables, and some of these are some niceties that will be like the git tag at the time that you're doing this build, or maybe the date, or maybe the so the tag will include like the date and the tag, the commits from last tag, and then a short version of the git shell, right? So we can check that out later. But what's really cool about it is this variance file, right? So if you specify a variance file and pass it a build directory that contains a variance file, it will try to build all of those variants unless you specify a specific one, right? So what's cool about this is that we can aggregate a set of combinations or configurations for this image without having to create multiple Docker files, say, right? So looking at that variance file, well, you'll see what we did here. We created two variants. One is Go 114, and the second one is Go 113, right? So some of the variables that are defined, config, is just a general variable to let us know that this is the Go 114 config, so that we can pass this around during the cloud build run. The Go version, of course, the kube cross version, which is going to be, it's basically, this is the version that we're saying kube cross is going to be by the time that we push it, right? We're going to tag and push at this version, right? The protobuf version and the etcd version, right? So these match, this matches the etcd version that is in master, and I believe is also in some of the other release branches. This is the last known good protobuf version that we were using. At some point, we're going to bump that, but I want that to kind of happen out of band with the Go update, right? And we recently updated the kubecross version to 114.3, since 114.3 came out maybe last week or so, beginning of last week, I think. Cool. So any questions on that?
What's actually calling the variance.yaml? Is make pulling that, or is the Docker file? I guess, where does that actually get leveraged?
Oh, we're going there next.
Perfect.
So within the make file and the cloud build.yaml, we can see that this, let's look at the cloud build YAML first, right? So the cloud build YAML has one step, right? And it's simply doing make all, right? A make all with a set of variables, right? And you can see that we're enabling the experimental functions for Docker CLI. We're passing in, you'll note that there's an underscore on this variable, and or this substitution, right? And what that means is it's a user supplied variable, right? And user supplied, we mean either user themselves or GCP builder, right? There's something that we're supplying to the GCP build before it actually runs, right? So that config that config variable and basically all of the variables that you saw specified in the variance file, right? Those are getting passed into the make call. And then you can see the substitutions here. These are the valid substitutions for this build. You can see that we've set null values kind of for each of these substitutions so that while you'll see in the make file that we have some default versions of each of these variables. So theoretically, you could just run the make file instead of submitting a build to GCP Builder. But for the purposes of promotion, we do not want user built or makefile only built images pushed to the staging repository. Those should be handled through GCP Builder. And then finally, it's going to, this images stanza will essentially make sure that these versions or these tags exist for this this file, right? For this image, right? So you'll see here the project ID. Project ID will map to whichever project this run is happening in, and we keep that parameterized for the sake of anyone who wants to do this and push images to their registry. They have the option to do that without having to unfurl the hard-codedness of Kate's staging build image, right? Which is the staging project that we'll be pushing this to, right? So going over to the make file, we can scan through this, and we can see that we're setting a few, the Kate's staging build image, as I mentioned, and then the prod registry is usgcr.io, Kate's artifacts prod build image /build image. So basically, if you remove the Kate staging hyphen from whatever your staging project's name is, you'll get an idea of what the subdirectory the image will land in, right? So that's build image to build image. So those defaults that I was talking about, we're doing a tag. We're basically this will pull the, what is it, the git tag plus n commit since tag plus dot g sha, right? And it will still pull a tag if dirty, right? And this is useful for, when you're trying out new things and you haven't necessarily committed anything, but you still want that build to work. The config defaults to Go 114. The kubectl version defaults to the latest Go 114 3-1, and so on and so forth, right? So the all target is build and push, and build and push are kind of straightforward Docker things, right? We're doing a build with the build arguments, and then we're doing a push. What's special here is that we're also creating a manifest for the kubectl version, right? So the manifest will hold, is then annotated with the architecture of the AMD 6401, right? So at this time, eventually we'd like to support multi-arch kubectl images, multi-arch in the sense that we have, so it's kind of meta, right? So we produce an image that allows you to build Kubernetes for multiple architectures, right? But we also want to be able to produce images, that image for multiple architectures. So people on ARM or what have you can also build Kubernetes for multiple architectures, right? So that should be coming soon. We'll see if we can tackle this in 119. I think it should be relatively not, you know what, I'm not going to say that it's easy. We'll find out when we get there. Okay, so and then finally we push this manifest. We've pushed the tags, so we're pushing that tag -config, and then we're pushing the architecture and the kubectl version, right? So what will end up in the staging registry is a variety of different configurations, or a variety of different tag configurations that you can use for your for promotion or to key on. Eventually, I would probably add a latest -config to this one as well, so that that goes into some like auto bumper implications, right? Where we can start to use like the auto bumper to find the latest version for Go 113 and then bump that across the repo, right? So maybe one day soon. But for now, any questions on all of this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we're going to close these up. All right. So all of that said, what do we do, right? So we want to do a cube cross bump. What's the first step, right? We want to go into here and let's take a look at what we did for the 114.3-1 image, right? Pretty straightforward, right? So all we did was we changed so because 114 is the prevailing minor version, that's the reason that we bumped this cube cross version within the make file, right? For the 113 variant, we're not going to change anything within this make file, right? We're going to leave it as leave 114 as the prevailing version. But for 113, we're going to change the cube cross version. So if we've changed something, some content within the repo that changes the way this cube cross version, this cube cross Docker image is built, then we want to bump the revision, right? So this is essentially the image revision, right? This 5 here, right? We want to bump that. If we're changing the Go version, so in this case, we're going to go from 113.9 to 113.11, right? We're going to change the Go version here, and then we're going to change the cube cross version to be v113.11-1, right? And then save your changes, push the PR, and then in the background, we're going to do some kooky stuff with image building and post submits and all that good stuff, right? So any questions on what the PR looks like? Okay. All right. So now over to test infra. Right. So okay. So within the config jobs image pushing directories, we have a file called kstaging build image.yaml. Kstaging build image.yaml contains the configs for post submits that handle the image pushing doodads, right? So the cloud build job that we were talking about earlier, this is where it gets submitted, right? Now it's using GCB builder, and this is basically passing a bunch of GCB builder flags to the prow job, right? So we're saying use, so this is the Debian base one, Debian IP tables, and then further down, you'll see the cube cross one, right? So a few things are happening with this image. It's running on a trusted prow cluster with this image building job. It's running on a trusted prow cluster. It's doing a few things. It's reporting failures to release managers at kubernetes.io, which is what we want. And it's reporting across on a few different test grid dashboards, right? So RelMgr informing, master informing, and SIG release image pushes, right? So what we do is we only trigger these jobs on changes to the relevant directory, right? So we don't need to build these images all the time. We only need to build these images when something in the kubectl directory changes, right? And we say that we only want this job to run on master. We want to use the GCB builder service account, which has access to reach into our build image GCP project and trigger a GCB build, right? So it's an account that lives in one place, that has lives in one project, one of the K8s Infra master projects, and has access to trigger GCP build, jobs across multiple staging projects, right? We're saying that we're going to use the project name -GCB as a scratch bucket, and we're going to target images build cross as essentially the config and build directory, right? For GCB builder. And I think we can go into GCB builder at a later time, hoping to do some changes there. So stay tuned. But if anyone has questions about GCB builder, I'm happy to go into that. Right. So we're basically saying run this thing, target this project, target the scratch bucket, and target this build config directory, and spit it out so that I can see it within the prow job, right? So over to test grid. And we're going to go look for image pushes. And let me know if my screen is too small. Everyone can see everything okay?
Yep, I can. I do have a question though.
Sure.
When we go to the test infra, we're not changing anything there, right?
We're not changing anything there.
Got
That's
it,
just
okay.
for the sake of edification on the call. Cool. So we're looking at the post-release push image cube cross job. After we have made our PR, it's been approved, it's merged, this job should run. And depending on the size of the image, I think this takes 15 minutes or something, maybe less, right? Cool. And it's not given me all the logs that I want, but it's given me enough to get more logs, right? So it says that we did job runs here and here. Right. So in this instance, I'm going to look at the execution details and see that this is the 113.9.5. I don't care about this one. I haven't changed anything here, right? So that one goes away, right? What I care about.
And for those URLs you hit, that you need a privileged GCP account to see this side, right?
Yes. You need to be part of the IAM group for the build image. So I think in this instance, interesting. So eventually we want to move the build image ownership fully under release engineering. Today, it is kind of shared ownership between myself, Dims, Christoph, Ben, and Linus. So there's some introspection that you'll lack based on that. But I'll try to get the logs output to, I think the last step in transferring ownership fully over to the release engineering subproject is documenting it, right? So once we go through this call, Marky is going to draft some notes. I'm going to refine the notes. We're going to get that merged in, and we should be able to proceed forward after that. So going through these logs, Docker build stuff, we've seen it before. But I can move slower if people care about what's happening.
Just to come up to speed, can I just ask one more question?
Sure.
So initially, we're basically going in and we're changing the variance YAML in the two areas. That will once that PR gets merged, that automatically will kick off this job.
Exactly.
We'll be able to view it through test grid.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep. But as we saw, that this is a little bit more, a little sparse in terms of logs. So when we run variants, when we run jobs that have variants attached to them, I think the way the logs are output is slightly different. We intentionally obscure the logs, I think, because they get spit out randomly, right? They get spit out as both jobs are running. So it looks kind of weird on the screen to have both the 113 and 114 variants running at the same time. But let's see if there are, I wonder if I'm just totally joking and that's not true. Wait, clone log, no, okay, they're actually not here. Right, so today at least, this is where you would get your logs. And I think it should be reasonable to enable more people to view this. But what's happening, so we see a push here. Let's make this just a little bigger. Right, so we've got a manifest creation here, and we can see that we're creating the Cube Cross AMD 64 114.3-1. And we're pushing those manifests, and we've pushed the Docker tags previously. And this is the tag that I was talking about, right? So we've got the name, we've got the date, we've got the repo tag, right? So the repo was at 031 plus 27 commits, dash, so a short SHA was 3FCF785, dash that config variable, right? Go 114, right? So this is kind of like an indicator for us when we go skulking around the image, the container registry to see what's available. I can at least say, hey, I'm looking for Cube Cross, and from Cube Cross, I can say, you know, I'm looking for something that's in the 113 series, 113.9, right? So all of those images that were, you know, created on December 31st, 1969, and pushed very, very recently, are available. And we can see those 2 days ago, you know, 2 days ago, May 6th. So this is the one that was repushed 2 days ago, right? But the one that we care about is, can we just do 14? Does that work? Not well enough. Right. So that one that we care about, 114.3-1, pushed 2 days ago, right? So that's cool. And these are, it's important to just grok the difference that these are the fat manifests, right? For the Docker image, or for the set of Docker images. And this will just be loading for indeterminate amount of time. Still loading. Super. Okay, cool. I refreshed it right as it finished loading. Okay, right. So if you were to look at this manifest, so anyone who's not familiar with digests, digests are basically the immutable tag for a Docker image or some Docker resource or container image resource, something that fits the OCI spec, right? So if we check this out, we've got a manifest list, right? And then it gives you a set of manifests, right? And the set only includes one manifest, but let's just watch for this A7320 digest, right? And we're gonna go see that in a minute. All right, let's go to Cube Cross AMD 64, right? And you can see these are a bit more tagged up. So you want to probably be consistent with these tags. So I'll have some fixes to put in for this, right? But we can see the 114.3-1, right? And it also pulled in that tag that GCB builder passed it that we saw in the logs earlier, right? And if we click into it, we can also see we didn't have to click into it, but we have now. So we'll wait for this to load. Any questions while we load?
Nada.
Okay. Wow, computer, you're killing it today.
So completely random question. I saw there in the images they had like the creation time was like a random epoch, not random, but the epoch date of like December, whatever, 1969. Is that indication of anything? Just life?
I I I have solved the problem before, but I think that it will also have to do with the Docker engine on GCP. So is it figure outable? Probably. Uh, did I bother? Did I bother trying to solve it at the moment? No, but we should get those creation dates correct at some point. So if you want to file an issue in K-release, we can work on that. You can pick it up if you want. So looking at this digest, right, we have that that A7320, right, that we had before. So we know that this is the AMD 64 image that maps to this manifest list, right? So that makes me happy. And now that we know that, now we've verified that, we can do some more stuff, right? And so we're going to go on to the next step. And before we do we have any questions? Okay. So the next step is image promotion, right? So we've successfully minted a new image, new kubectl image for some version, right? It's 1.14.3 in this case, and we've put that in staging, right? For it to be an official image, we need to promote that from staging over to production, right? So we're going to do that next, and we're going to look at this 1.14.3 as an example. And nope. Is there a breadcrumb? There's a breadcrumb. Good. All right. So here is an image promotion PR, right? And let's go look at what this PR has in it. Pretty simple. For breadcrumb sake, I link the bump PR and also the staging run, right? So if anyone needs to backtrack, they can do it fairly easily. And you can see that those build image approvers are tagged on this, as well as release engineering CC'd. So you'll probably have seen a bunch of these flying by. I like to try to tag y'all or release engineering on the whole, and as many of these as possible. So sorry for flooding the inbox, but this is overall good to review afterwards. So simple, right? What we've done is we've added, and I'll show you the expanded manifest list in a bit. We've added a new tag, right? The 1.14.3-1, right? And that's the kubectl tag that we care about. And then we have this digest here, 0B8C CA6A, right? And if we go back to that manifest list that we were talking about, right? So what we did was we took this digest and we uploaded that to, we're saying we triggered the promotion for that, right? So essentially what that does is it drags the fat manifest or the manifest list across to the production repo, right? Which pulls in the AMD 64 image, right? As a result. So any questions on that?
Just a quick question. In regards to where you have the manifest for the digest in the previous screen, we don't have access to that currently, right?
Not yet, no.
Okay.
But I'm going to show you some stuff.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to show you some stuff in a bit. All right. So.
And I think you might be getting to this, but is there any order here that we're looking at? Like, I guess, does that matter at all, or just YAML basically, and it's getting declared somewhere else or called somewhere else to reference that SHA?
Order in what sense?
So it looks like you have 114 and then 113 and then 114 and 113.
Yeah, they're ordered by SHAs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So unfortunately, and it's something that was a little frustrating to me too. Unfortunately, because these are essentially elements of the digest, right? So a digest can have multiple tags, right? We need to key on something that's immutable, right? So we key on the digest, and unfortunately, when we use some of these tools, the way the digest gets spit out is sorted by the way the manifest gets spit out is sorted by digest. So it's a minor pain. You'll see in let's take Cluster API Azure, since it's another thing I touch for an example. And I'll talk more about what's in this repo in a bit. And I know that very little of this has been Go related, but it's important to understand how all these pieces fit together. So in the Cluster API Azure one, if we look at the images, we can see that they're ordered by they're not ordered by SHA, right? And it's a little easier to see tag by tag, right? So the reason that I opted for this format is because it's the format that the tool that we currently use for image promotion spits out the manifests. And the idea is to eventually be able to loop in, not necessarily for kubectl, but definitely for the images that we produce via the staging and release process. Those images prior to the VDF or the vanity domain flip get pushed directly to staging and directly to production during the staging and release process. So once we move over to new infrastructure, or once we move over to the Kubernetes community infrastructure, we will not have access to push directly to production. And you could posit that we shouldn't have done that in the past anyway. So in between the staging job, we'll essentially walk through some of this process too, right? So publishing to staging, that's fine, right? But pushing to production, not fine, right? So between the staging and the release process, a release manager will be promoting the images that get spit out into staging over to production, and then proceeding with the next steps. So in order for that to happen, we want to make sure that because there are multiple images, there's API server, controller manager, scheduler, kube proxy down the line, right? Conformance, and those are available for multiple architectures, right? So imagine right now we're only doing this with one digest, right? Imagine we had to do that for multiple images across multiple architectures, and make sure it's right. So I want automation to take care of that. A tool is being written right now that will essentially target a staging tag, target a production tag, and merge the manifest, right? So it'll take an existing manifest that is already in the kates.io repo, and it will splice in the changes from staging, right? So if I specify a staging tag and I say this is going to be the images for the set is going to be the images for Kubernetes 1.20, right? It'll take those and plop them into the manifest, and then give me a YAML file that I can propose as a PR, just like this. But we're taking some of the human element out of that piece, right? So ideally, the staging process will dump a YAML file in some GCS bucket. We pick it up, and we propose that as a promotion, right? So the reason for, so I'm trying to think how many tools or how many pieces of our process will eventually use that tool. And the ones that do will need sorted digests, right? So that's the reason that these are not as nicely sorted as these, right? Okay, so we've hit a new repo, and we haven't really, a lot of the people on the call or watching later may not be familiar with what this repo does. So the kates.io repo, right? it's Kubernetes files for various star.k8s.io sites, right? And so it houses DNS zone files, it houses the aliases for Kubernetes, and you can see some of the stuff here, configs for like cert manager for the things that we use, you know, the various groups that are managed under the Kubernetes.io domain. So the community group or the release managers group or any of that stuff, like your configs, right? So to take an example, we can see, right, we configure by YAML. These are the email addresses and stuff like that. So we can specify a group there. So that's one of the many things that this repo does. The one relevant to this conversation is k8s.gcr.io, right? So k8s.gcr.io split into two subdirectories, right? Images and manifests, right? And together, they're all essentially a manifest, right? And manifest in question for or config for the image promoter, right? So if we look at the manifest for build image, and so promoter manifest.yaml, so we'll see a few things here, right? The first, a set of registries, right? And the first is the staging registry, right? So we're saying that the staging registry is the source for promotion, right? And then subsequently, we have us.gcr.io, k8s artifacts prod, build image, EU, and Asia. Same rest of endpoint, right? You can see that there's a service account specified, right? So basically, this is the service account that we would use to promote the image from staging, from the staging GCP project over to the prod GCP project, right? And we're telling it where we want it to go, right? So the reason that these are split into two separate directories is we don't want changes to this, right? We don't want someone arbitrarily being able to go in, push a PR, and change where staging images get promoted to, right? Unless it's someone that we want doing that, right? So to kind of allay any confusion and you know, prevent accidental PRs that would do that, they were split into two separate directories. And you can see that there's an owners specified here. And, oh, it's just a label, right? Which means that the owners for this are the top level owners for k8s.io, right? And if we want to see those, right here, right? So Bart, Christoph, Dims, Mike, Nikita, Aaron, and Tim Hawken. And then if we take a look at the owner's aliases real quick, I've added a few build image approvers and reviewers, as well as release engineering approvers and reviewers. Now these are the set of sub-project owners, as well as for the reviewer side. For the approver side, we have the patch release team in here. And for the reviewer side, we have the patch release team as well as the branch managers, right? And that will come up in a bit. Any questions? Going too fast, too slow?
Goldilocks speed, just good enough.
Okay, perfect. All right. So now we go into images, and we've kind of seen the images directory already, right? For the build image, right? So first, let's look at the owners. We've got the build image approvers and reviewers here, and we target these as SIG release and area release engineering, right? And then images, and that was that images file that I showed you before. We've got KubeCross in here, we've got Debian base and its various architectures. The reason the specific architectures are here is because the Debian base images are, their Docker files are written a little differently, so they don't take advantage of the manifest list yet. Coming soon. And then finally, GoRunner. GoRunner is a kind of distro-less plus. I think I was talking about that on the SIG release meeting this week. Distro-less plus image written by DIMS, intended to kind of replace some of the Debian base images. So that is happening slowly but surely. But yeah, for us, we care about kubectl, right? So let's go to one more directory. All right, we're gonna go to, right, so this is a container image. Okay. All right, so we're at master and fully updated and all that good stuff, and hopefully my history remembers this command because I can never. All right, cool. Basil run workspace command, yada, yada, yada. We're gonna write this down and we're gonna unbasilify it, promise. So basically it's running the CIP target. So let's do this, cancel it, and code open. So if we look at build.basil, there is a target somewhere, CIP. It's one of these. Yeah. So this target, it's basically passing a few flags to CIP, which is the container image promoter, right? These are its flags, and we won't go into that. I have limited knowledge about how all of that works, but I know enough to do this part. So, all right, so it's Basil run workspace status command. We're going to force Python 2, CIP snapshot, the staging directory output YAML format, and we're going to write it to a file, right? And this isn't perfect, but this will give you the full, like I've often needed to get the full dump of that repository. So let's do that.
And I might be a little bit thick-skulled here, but what exactly are we doing here when we're outputting that to a file? Like, where does this come into play in a bigger picture?
You'll see.
Okay, to be determined.
Can you post that command?
Yep. There you go. And if I wanted to do this more nicely, let's look at CIP. There's a tag in here somewhere. Snapshot tag? Maybe it's snapshot tag. V114 3-1, right? Right, so what I asked it to do, I'll give you the one with the snapshot tag in it too. It's probably more useful. All right, so what we did here is, this is why it's relevant, Jim. What we did was we dumped a map of the digests that match that tag, right? So we're going to take these digests now, right? And we would propose it as a PR going back to that PR that we did, right? We're going to propose it as the manifest list or what have you to promote, right? So in this case, we wanted to take the kubectl manifest list, right? Not we don't care about the architecture one because it's included in the manifest list, and the kubectl images do properly propose the manifest or publish the manifest, right? So we're only taking this 0B8 CAC, CA6, blah, 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 and 114.3-1, right? So that's what this PR was, right?
Gotcha. Now, is there ever a time where there's more than one?
Yes. It depends. It depends on what you're promoting. For KubeCross, if we're only doing one Go version, then it's just one that we're looking to promote. Let's say I've changed both of the variants, and like that might be the case where I want the full dump, right? And it changes this file, and now I'm looking for, like, it's messy now, right? But I'm looking for the KubeCross stuff, right? And then you can see all of these things are included, right? So I can pick up the ones that I need and propose those. But yeah, usually if you're only updating, this may come up in different scenarios, but if you're only updating one Docker file, one manifest list or one Go version, then you only need that one. So going back to the promoting staging images or promoting things as part of the staging to release process for the Kubernetes release process, essentially that manifest edit command or that kind of like munge would do what I just did, that snapshot, and then merge the tags that I cared about, right? So that 0, wherever it is, that 0B8CA, right? Merge that into this manifest, right? And it would spit out a YAML that I could just propose as a PR, right? So the reason that I wanted these sorted is that it would match the format that it was going to spit it out in.
And then you're essentially just copying and pasting that in for your PR. Okay,
exactly.
now that makes sense.
Exactly. Cool. So we have walked through that. We have successfully promoted our image. We see it's merged, right? And now what? Okay, so if I can remember the test grid, well, first we're going to close all of these windows. Are we good on that stuff?
I am going to say yes for me.
Okay, cool.
Yep. So at this point, we have KubeCross all updated, ready to rock, but not necessarily being used, and that's what we're transitioning into.
Okay, so where did this go? What happened, right? Let's go to test grid again. And let's see if we can figure it out. Working group, case.io, pull, post, push, post, CIP. There we go. Okay. So let's say we did this 2 days ago, which was the 18th. Time is strange. Okay. Let's see if we can figure this out. 2 days ago. Maybe it's easy to figure out. And we're going to get this huge build log. We're going to wait while my screen maybe freezes while the log is loading. Okay. So these will kind of look familiar because it was the format that, it's close to the format of these requests that you saw as part of the inventory for the container image promotion. But towards the bottom, I think, is the interesting stuff. Yes, this is the correct log, right? And it's doing something weird where I can't see all of it, but towards the bottom,
Does it start to say begin promotion?
yes.
I'm there.
Okay. Okay, my computer's trying to kill me today, but anyhow, it says begin promotion at the bottom, and you'll see that it has targeted the 114.3 -1 image for multiple edge endpoints, right? So US GCR.io, Asia GCR.io, and EU GCR.io, right? So those, assuming this job is successful, which it was, that image is now promoted to production, right? And is available at us.gcr.io or /Kate's artifacts prod /build image /kubecross version, right? So I'm going to close these up.
I dropped a copy of it in chat.
Sweet. Can you drop it in the meeting notes instead?
Yes.
All right. So let's go back to our list of things to do. And let's open up the 113.11 one, right? Okay, so we've done these two. Now we've got to do the KK bump, right? And it's not a dance, it's actually a PR. It sounds like a dance. All right, so over to Kubernetes. Let's look at the 113.9 one. Now this gets interesting because I'm wondering if I had applied the dependency file changes yet. Okay, let's not look at this one. Let's look at 10. Let's look at the 114.3 one. Why not? So don't mind all the failures in this PR. Those are related to Repo Infra.
That's what I always say at the beginning of every code review. Just don't pay any attention.
Just don't worry about the failures. It's fine. Let's see if we can find this Repo Infra one actually. Let's see if it is merged. Okay, merged. Awesome. Cool. So this is where it starts to get interesting, right? Because we're playing in Kubernetes, and we're at the mercy of multiple tests in multiple different styles. Some of the tests, what gets interesting about this is like some of the tests are dependent on the Go version. Isn't that crazy? So when you're changing the Go version, you have to be aware of that. And there are certain things that, because the Go version has changed, we need to provide a matching support version of that thing, right? So one of those things is, that's just why I opened up this PR, is the rules.go Basil file, right? So rules.go, rules_go was moved to repo infra. So the reason I'm not using the 113.9 PR as an exemplar is because of this, right? Actually, we can look at it. Well, let's look at it, right? So if you look at rules.go, it basically defines different rules for using Go and Basil together, right? So you can see these say, hey, you know, Go 114.3 and 113.11 are now supported, and here's the hunk of Basil that you copy into your workspace to make that work for you, right? So in this hunk of Basil, you'll see that this is an HTTP archive, defined as an HTTP archive for Basil with the rules.go. It has a SHA for, you know, this version of this 0225 version, as well as URL endpoints to pull it from, right? So, it's providing 2 just on the off chance 1 is down, right? And then there are a few functions that you pull in, Go rules dependencies, and then Go register tool chains, and then Basil does stuff. That's my highly academic explanation of Basil doing stuff. Quarterly updates. All right. So let's look at this one really quick. Oh, I already had it open. Awesome. All right. So you can
And so
see.
you can update Basil before your PR lands or merges because it also supports all the earlier Go versions as well.
Right.
Cool.
Up to a certain point, right? So I believe that that recent bump, the bump that just happened, supports 13 and 14. I think they dropped Go 12 support in that one. So things to be aware of, so like if we're kind of in this like sliding mode where, Kubernetes releases aren't necessarily happening at the same time that Go releases are, and then Go's support cycle is slightly different from Kubernetes. So we have to be aware of like the 115 branch, for example, of Kubernetes was on Go 112.17, right? Which is now an out of support version of Go, right? So for us to, so this goes into like the annual support conversations where, if you're talking about enacting support for 115, then you have to consider the fact that 115 is using an out of support Go version, right? So do you update the version of Go? Do you carry patches for the 112 version of Go, right? So it's important that we keep these very as close as possible in line with what's being released in Go, so that we don't have to worry about those kinds of problems. But they come up nonetheless. They will come up every release cycle. Every release cycle, towards the end of the cycle, someone goes, "Hey, should we update Go?" Or "There's a new version of Go out," right? And it's a few days before we're set to release. And for those of you who have been on the release team, all of you have been on the release team, you've seen that happen before, right? And it all depends on when the next Go comes out, right? I believe they release on about a monthly cadence. And I'm not sure what their minor cadence is though. So anyhow, so there are a few things going on in this PR, and we'll look at the Go stuff first, right? We'll look at the Basil stuff first, right? So as I was, this is kind of a hack that XD suggested, Jeff Grafton, where we actually went into the rules.go and pulled out the explicit SHAs for each of these downloads. The reason for that was I think rules.go had not been updated to the point to support Go 113.9 just yet. Or we hadn't changed repo infra. It was this weird dependency thing that he was like, "Here, just use this." I was like, "All right, just as long as it works, man." So this is part of the reason that we've moved the Basil updates out of over to repo infra, so it's easier to manage those out of band. Right, so that Go register toolchain thing that I was talking about, right, and then we've got some obvious-ish bumps, right, to versions, right? So I'm going to go into more detail. Is everyone good on time?
I think I'll probably just bounce in 5 minutes, but it's no biggie. I can always come back and watch this later. But really
Okay.
appreciate it, everybody.
Yeah.
I have about another 5 minutes.
Dude.
We're dropping 2.
I have 20 minutes.
20 minutes? All right, let's see how far we can go. Let's see how far we can go in 5. Let's see what we can do in 5. All right, so I am going to go a little faster now. All right, and we're going to go to Kubernetes. Ooh. And I'm going to make my screen bigger in a bit. Figure out what branch I'm on. Ooh, yikes. Ooh, Oh no. Oh no. I was mid cherry pick. Oh no.
Never done that before.
Oh boy. Oh wow.
The cherry on
Okay.
top.
Yeah. We're just gonna dash this because we don't need this anymore. Yay, we did a thing. All right. Right, so now we're on master and we have properly reset this, and we're going to check out a branch. Let's call it go 113. I'm not going to actually push this. Marky and Veronica are going to work on this, but let's do that. Let's create this branch. We're opening Git. We're opening the repo, and it's open to the right file already, right? So we have this really cool file called build dependencies.yaml. And build dependencies.yaml stores some interesting things. I'm going to make that a little smaller so it's easier to see more of it. Stores some interesting things. First, it stores a cat paw. Hey, cat, how's it going? So the dependencies are, we basically sort them by name, version, and ref paths, right? So ref paths, set of path and a regex match for that path, right? So what this allows us to do is when we're doing dependency bumps, it allows us to key into the files that we need to change and hopefully makes sure that we don't miss things, right? So before you start a dependency bump, I would suggest, and you'll see that this runs really quickly, it is hack verify external dependencies versions, the dependency version.sh, right? And yay, empty. Something, I mean, across a few of the tools are, things to be desired in terms of UX, but this works nicely for now. Right, so we saw that came up empty, and that's good. Let's make it fail. Now we're gonna bump this version, right? So we can see that we're actually bumping this Go version now, right? And we should see a set of failures, right? Right, so this time it said, hey, build image cross version didn't match that version that you gave me. And test images makefile didn't match that version that you gave me. What's going on, right? So now there are two entries to be aware of. It's the Golang entry as well as the kubectl entry, right? So let's say we created that new kubectl version. We're going to update it to that new kubectl version, right? And when we run this again, it's not going to tell you all of the stuff that's missing because it basically fails out during the first failure, right? So let's go resolve that first failure first, right? So I'm going to do a silly search for, 113 dots /.9, right? And it's telling me where to go. And I'm going to replace this with 113.11, right? And I want to touch the repo infra configure part, which needs to be added to the workspace, right? I want to touch this. I'll come back to this one, right? This is the new kubectl version. It has a separate entry for it. We're going to come back to that. But also the makefile for the test images, right? We're going to bump that one. And then this one for the is this the API server? Sample API server, yeah. We're going to come back to this one because it's the kubectl version, right? So we've now hopefully satisfied these two failures, right? So yes, we have satisfied those two failures, but now it's telling me, well, we've satisfied one of them, right? Now it's telling me that the version is wrong, right? So I want to go correct the kubectl version, right? and that is -5, I believe, right? And I want to replace it with -1, right? 113.11-1, right? So I am pop and change, right? And now if I run that again, it comes back empty, right? So that tells me that I have hopefully bumped everything that I need to bump for a Go version update to be successful in Kubernetes, right? And if I do a diff, right, I can see, well, one, if I do git diff name status, it's going to show me the files that were modified, right? So things within build and test are pretty much what we care about, right? So the cross version, the dependencies, that YAML file itself, the workspace file, the Basil file, the make file for the test images, and then the sample API server Docker file, right? And if I look at that diff again, right, we can see 113.9-5, 113.11-1, right, and so on and so forth, right? And that is mostly it, right? I mean, the next thing you do is you propose this PR, you run through the gauntlet of tests, you get it to merge, and then from there, we're going to, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? We're going to cherry pick this, right? We're going to cherry pick this back to the branches that it needs to be cherry picked back to. So those are in the patch scenario. We want to make sure that the patch versions stay up to date for each of the versions. So for the minor scenario, we want to make sure that the patches are up to date for each of the same minor version, right? So if release 1.18, 17, and 16 are using Go 113, we want to update those as well, right? So in this scenario, y'all will be cherry picking back all the way to 116, right? I feel like we're out of time, but there are still a few more places to cover bumps. This one we can probably shift up and we can talk about later. The Kate's Cloud Builder version is basically the Cloud Builder. The Kate's Cloud Builder is the image that we use to do staging and release for Kubernetes, right? So we essentially want to make sure that the patch versions or minor versions, patch versions of Go match the kubectl image, right? So to do that, we basically we do a from kubectl, right? So the kubectl image that we've just published and the new Kate's Cloud Builder image, their versions need to match. They need to stay in sync. So we would do these two bumps together, but we can have a second session to talk about wrapping some of the stuff up, and that will probably be like, we can do this maybe after, Marky, after you send me some notes, maybe I put up a draft to capture this first part of it, and then we can go into the next pieces. Sounds good?
I dropped the notes in the doc that you had at the bottom, and I just sectioned it and just said Marky's notes.
Perfect. Okay. So.
And they're raw.
Okay, perfect. So anything that I, at least, do you feel like you're on stable-ish footing, given what I've gone over?
I'm going to say yes and no. I think ideally I'm going to have to go through it, stumble like hell, and that's where I'll start to really get the muscle memory, because I want to figure it out myself. Mm-hmm. So I'm just going to start doing my part, lining it up. I know I won't be able to do things until certain steps are done before.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to sort of start now and just stumble my way through it. And
so it looks like Veronica has the first step, which is the kubectl bump.
Yeah.
Let me, go for it.
No. I was just going to ask something, but go first.
No, go for
it. No, I was going to say to Marky that we could, like, even if we have the specified tasks, now that we have gone through this together, like we could like at some point work together, like in a call, like doing this and during a call or whatever, not necessarily like sticking to like our individual responsibility, but rather like submitting this as a pair. I don't know.
Together. No,
Yeah,
I like the
fair,
sounds of
yeah.
that because we'll learn it. We'll learn it together, right? Because
Yeah.
next time we do this, I don't think we want to do the same steps. So if we learn it all together, I think it'll be a super
Exactly.
collaborative
Yeah.
thing.
But it's just an option.
No,
But
I like that
what were
option.
you saying? Okay, cool. So what were you saying, Stephen?
I don't remember. um, so yeah, we can, if you want. I've got some holes in my schedule tomorrow. If you want to go through some of the stuff, I was going to say that based on the way some of the processes evolved, I need to reorganize what's currently listed there.
Okay.
And I want to better pair the tasks, right? So like if someone does the initial bump, right, then maybe the other person does all the cherry picks, right? And if you're
Okay.
handling the bump, you should probably also handle the promotion PR, right? That kind of
Okay.
stuff, right? So let me just resort that a little bit, so that it's, so that you don't have to like, oh, did you do this thing yet? Okay, well, I need you to do this thing before I can do that. Yeah, I'll try to streamline that a little bit.
Can we move it for Friday? Tomorrow, I have to man a community booth for a different open source project.
Yeah.
Is
yeah,
that
let's-
and I normally I would try to blow something off to do this because this is important to me, but I've already signed up for that and I can't.
Is that like a virtual
Yeah,
community
that's
booth?
fine.
What'd you say?
The virtual community booth?
Yeah, a virtual community, literally, yeah. Which is
Um,
going to be really, really weird. I'm not sure how that's supposed to work out, but
Marky,
Are
are
you
you
handing out
Eastern?
stickers?
I am handing out stickers. Yeah, literally. No, like they're gonna like the person will give their name and address, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna create this little list, and then they're gonna have this like, there's this whole company behind that'll be like, it's for the CDF. They're gonna
Okay.
we
That's
give the
actually
list,
kind of
and
cool.
Yeah.
they're gonna mail out they're gonna be like they
Get
got
a
a
little sticker
conference
pack.
bag, and yeah, it's
Nice.
really strange, but yeah.
So Marky, I forgot. Are you Eastern?
No, I'm West Coast,
West Coast?
but
Okay.
I don't sleep a lot. So like I know I get up super early. So if we started at 6 a.m. my time, it wouldn't be.
Yikes! Let's not do that. Let's not do that. I'll reach out to y'all with times. I'm just trying to find blocks in my schedule, but I can do that.
Yeah,
I'm
and if we
free
don't do it
all
this week, we
Friday.
can also do it next week too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Sweet.
Awesome. Thank you all for hanging
No,
out.
thank you, Stephen.
Yes,
oh my
thank
God, this
you.
was.
Seriously, thank you.
Yeah.
And this is phase 0. There are like 3 more. No, I'm kidding. I mean, it's like it's more than half of the work, right? So the follow-up call will be faster, hopefully.
Sweet.
Hopefully.
All right, y'all. Take it easy.
Awesome.
Cheers,
Thanks.
all. See you
Bye.
online.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.